What's going on, everybody? My name is John. Thanks for checking out the video. Today we are going to do part 2 of a video series related to through the mail autographs, or TTM autographs. We created an initial video about a week ago, so if you're interested in this video or through the mail autographs, you might want to go check out that, assuming you haven't already. That through the mail video kind of highlighted a bunch of custom photography that we created for professional golfers, that specifically for professional golfers that had won major championships or are Hall of Fame members or future Hall of Fame members. In the summer of 2010, we sent those all TTM, and we received about 50, roughly, of them back in the mail with autographs. Most of them, we believe, being genuine. Today, we're going to show you guys in a bit of a show and tell the sports cards that we sent that same summer. And these are sports cards for baseball, football, basketball, and golf. You're going to see a mixture of everything. That same summer, we probably sent, I don't know, maybe 100 different sports cards out. And we received the vast majority of those back. This was back in the summer of 2010, so that you may see some folks that no longer do TTM or may no longer be with us. So keep that in mind as you're looking at this. But we figured we would kind of complete this video series of through the mail autographs by showing you guys the remaining through the mail autographs that we received that summer. And hopefully you guys can get some enjoyment out of it. That said, let's go ahead and flip around the camera and take a look at what we got. All right, so picked out just a couple of stacks. This is not everything that we had sent that summer, but you know, some of the more recognizable names that have aged well, that are in pretty good shape. The autographs are pretty good. We're just going to kind of buzz through them. We're going to do them in 2 stacks. Before we get started, I got to thank a friend of mine, Jason. He is not a sports fan. He's not a sports card fan. He's actually more of like an endurance sports, you know, person. He's into more of that type of lifestyle. And he used to watch a video series that I did on this same channel for marathon prep. He obviously has watched the recent sports card videos and sent me a care package with these easels. Basically it shared, you know, maybe this will upgrade the content a little bit. Now I think about that, he was probably slamming me. No, Jason's a good guy, but certainly going to get him to use or put him to use today. So let's just go ahead and kick this off. This is going to be a mix of baseball, football, and probably some basketball. Here is a childhood favorite of mine. I was a Cubbies fan growing up. Thank you, WGN and the Cubs. There's Mr. Mark Grace. Here is borderline Hall of Famer Frank Gore, running back for the 49ers. Here's the only coach card you'll probably see today. This is a Hall of Fame coach of my Utah Jazz, the Jerry Sloan. Ron Boone is a, you know, I grew up in Utah, and in Utah, he's kind of, he was one of the voices of the Jazz for a long time, played for the Utah Stars and the Utah Jazz at the end of his career. He was an all-star, apparently a hell of a basketball player, slightly before my time, but if you live inside the state of Utah, or you've watched any sort of Jazz games during Karl Malone and John Stockton's heyday, you certainly heard the voice of Ron Boone. Here is a baseball great, Mr. Jim Thome, Hall of Famer. Here is a Steelers quarterback, Neil O'Donnell. You're going to see more than one Steelers quarterback today. Maybe a name not everybody's familiar with, but Kelly Tripucka had some great years with the Pistons and the Jazz. Another Steelers quarterback, Mr. Bubby Brister. Put all the Steelers quarterbacks over here. This one I'm going to assume is auto pen. You just can't imagine signing a card way down here. The autograph is pretty big. I'm certainly not an expert in auto pen per se, but my guess is this is likely auto pen. But there's Mr. Terry Bradshaw. I think maybe the last Steelers quarterback here is Cordell Stewart. CU Buff and Steelers, like Mr. Do Everything for a while. Bobby Bonilla. I think he's still being paid by the New York Mets after his long-term 25-year contract. One of my favorites growing up, Mr. Donnie Baseball. Another favorite of mine, favorite within the Utah Jazz, played during kind of our heyday with Malone and Stockton. Here's Mr. Donyell Marshall, UConn great. Louis Lips, Steelers, wide receiver, probably slightly underrated. Certainly not Hall of Fame caliber, but slightly underrated. Here's the Hawk, Mr. Andre Dawson, another one of my Cubbies favorites. Maybe you forgot this, but Mr. John Starks of the New York Knicks spent a year or two with the Utah Jazz. Here's a fun story for you. If you don't know your history of basketball, Gail Goodrich is a Hall of Famer. However, Gail Goodrich was traded from the Los Angeles Lakers to the New Orleans Jazz for draft capital. And part of that draft capital eventually turned into the first overall pick, in which they selected Magic Johnson. Former All-Star Ricky Green. Here's a guy whose situation's unfortunate, injury bug-wise. Penny Hardaway, at one point looked like he was going to be the face of the NBA, him and Shaquille O'Neal. Unfortunately, it didn't turn out that way for him, but he was a favorite of mine when I was a kid watching basketball. Here's a Hall of Famer that played for the Jazz for just a minute or two, Walt Bellamy. Joe Nathan, I thought for a minute he may be a fringe Hall of Famer, but I think he's off the ballot at this point. But Joe Nathan was a hell of a pitcher for a while. I live here in Colorado in the Denver metro area. Jeff Francis back in 2010 was one of their best pitchers, if not one of their best pitchers of all time. But you know, he was a big name back in 2010. Warren Moon, Hall of Famer for the Houston Oilers. Obviously played in the CFL, and that's a card of him on the Kansas City Chiefs. Sean Casey was one heck of a slugger back in the day. Beautiful autograph. I like Sean Casey's autograph. Dan Issel. Most will remember him for his Denver Nuggets days. This is an early card of his. In fact, this may be a second-year card. Might even be a rookie card. Final card I've got in this stack, and I just noticed in that light that card is damaged, and that's the unfortunate part about some of the TTM world is, you know, cards can get shipped, and the athlete may not put it back in your, you know, in your protective sleeves. It may just be thrown into an envelope. There is certainly some damage here, but back in 2010, Darren Williams was one of the biggest names in basketball, one of the youngest and brightest stars. That is his rookie card, autographed. This stack we're just going to go through. This is all from the Greats of the Game Fleer set. I purchased this set because of the TTM stuff that we were doing, and we sent out a majority of these cards. We've got about 40 of them that came back. We're not going to look at all 40 of them today, but we'll look at some of the more recognizable names, including the coach of the multi-time champion Warriors. There's Mr. Steve Kerr. Big Perk, Sam Perkins. Mookie Blaylock, big name from the day. Here's another big guy, Big Mark, unfortunately, no longer with us. Died in a freak bicycle accident. B. Scott. Tom Chambers. Fun story about Tom Chambers. He is from Ogden, Utah. When my parents were newly married, they moved across the street from Tom Chambers and his family. Tom was in his early teens. My dad actually coached him in Little League Baseball. Kenny Skywalker, Muggsy Bogues, Glenn Rice, Hall of Famer Joe Dumars, Hall of Famer Adrian Dantley, Hall of Famer Tiny Nate Archibald, Hall of Famer Maurice Lucas, Portland great, Hall of Famer David Robinson. That's a cool one. I'm not sure if he still does TTM, but David Robinson's amazing person, amazing player. Bob Pettit, Hall of Famer. The Chief, Robert Parrish, Hall of Famer. Bill Sharman, Hall of Famer. Jack Sikma, Hall of Famer. And Mo Cheeks, who's also a Hall of Famer. Other cards that I didn't show you, I think there's an ML car out of this set, a handful of others that we got back. Quite a few Jazz cards. You know, not everybody's a Jazz fan and are going to remember the Blue Edwards or the Jeff Malones or the Dennis Autry's or the, you know, that caliber of player. Todd Helton, I know I have TTM from Todd Helton. From back in the day, not sure exactly where it's at. It's probably still shoved in a box somewhere. There were a number of cards that kind of came, you know, after that summer, and most of these got thrown into the same box. And then there was some stuff that kind of came trickling in over time, and they've just been placed in other boxes. But TTM, absolute fun experience. You know, seeing these actually kind of get me in the mood to maybe do some research and see what the TTM world in 2023 is like. I know that there's a couple of golf autographs that I wouldn't mind getting engaged in. And so I may look at 2023 as a rekindling in the TTM world, but figured you guys might enjoy this. We had one hell of a summer back in 2010 looking and investigating addresses, investigating who signed, who didn't, and then sending them off. And then the experience of going to the mailbox on a daily basis was just an absolute treat, especially when there was a return envelope in our handwriting. You knew something was coming back, and then it was a mini surprise of exactly who it was, what did they sign, didn't they sign, the quality, so on and so forth. TTM is a fun experience. It's certainly a part of the hobby. If you've not done it and you're interested, I'd certainly tell you to check out some other YouTube channels. There's other great YouTubers out there. I know that there's a good, strong community out there. Just spend some time, and I'm sure that you can you know, get engaged with the TTM world. So other than that, we're going to go ahead and sign off. Chat later, everybody. Talk to everybody soon.